Greetings and salutations, everyone, and welcome to this night-ending bonus. Before we jump into it, a couple quick links. As many of you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost a cent. Click the like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads that I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment and share the video. Why? Well, because all of these things really do help the channel to continue to grow and go. They definitely do matter, and they are appreciated. With that, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this night-ending bonus upload, shall we? Today's first encounter. I live in western New York and happen to live within walking distance of some state land called the Lost Nation. The area earned its name from the legend of the Native American tribe who disappeared overnight without a trace, supposedly drowning themselves in the swamp there. If you Google Shadows of the Western Door, you'll find a book that's been published that includes supposedly haunted sites and areas of western New York. Lost Nation is one of them. My mom is a highly sensitive person when it comes to the paranormal, and I've personally had plenty of experiences in my lifetime. These are the experiences that I've had while spending time in the Lost Nation. First, Lost Nation has its own atmosphere. It can be an incredibly warm summer day, and the air there is always cold, wet, and heavy, to the point of wanting to put on a long-sleeved shirt or a sweater. The first experience happened back when I was in high school. My mom and I had parked along the road and got out to do some walking. We brought our dog with us, and she was roaming around sniffing like dogs do, but never went out of sight. We had been walking for about 10 minutes when all of a sudden we both stopped in our tracks and looked up. The area we had come to was completely dead. There were no live trees, plants, or animals, and the area had an almost gray color to it. There was a very distinct difference where the dead area started, almost as if a straight line had been drawn down. After walking a little further, I had a strange feeling that we were being watched. I looked up to my right just in time to see a large black figure peek at us from behind a tree. As soon as I noticed it, it retracted back behind the tree and out of sight. I chalked it up to being my imagination until my mom asked, "Did you just see that?" My heart sank. I told her I had, but just thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. My mom assured me she had seen it as well and said, "Well, the dog doesn't seem bothered, so I think we're okay," and started making her way to the left. I followed shortly after and felt the feeling of being watched dissipate when we finally came out of the dead area. The second experience was when I was in my early 20s. I had taken my ex-boyfriend to Lost Nation on numerous occasions, and he got the brilliant idea to go camping there. I'd always felt comfortable there during the day, but after dark is another story. I reluctantly agreed, and we set up camp close to the road and brought my dog with us. About 20 minutes after arriving and setting up, I started getting the feeling of being watched and felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I told my ex how I felt, and he agreed that he too had been feeling strange. We packed up our loose items and decided to go back home and grab the tent in the morning. Fast forward to the next morning, my ex and I made our way back to the campsite to recover our tent. We parked the truck, got out, and immediately I'm frozen in spot. I look up and meet eyes with the largest wolf I had ever seen. I start stammering to my ex and slowly back up to get back into the truck, and he starts complaining until he looks up and sees what keeps me from moving forward. We both make our way backwards into the truck and watch as this wolf slowly makes its way down the bank, across the creek, and up the hill out of sight. That was no ordinary wolf. Its fur was the deepest black I had ever seen. It was huge. I'm 5'4", and its haunches came to my sternum if I had to guess, and had the most intriguing gaze of any animal I had ever seen. The eyes were a deep yellow, but they had so much emotion and expression like a human's. When I locked eyes with it, I was not afraid. I felt a wave of sorrow and anguish wash over me, but no fear. I've been to Lost Nation thousands of times in my life, and I've never seen that wolf again. The last experience was during the early fall months, a few years back. My mom and I had gone to Lost Nation to pick some berries and hike for the day, just a normal trip to the forest. We had a basket full of huge raspberries, and we were just admiring the ferns on the forest floor, when all of a sudden, my mom and I look up just in time to see a crabapple speeding in her direction. The apple hits her in the hand and makes a loud thunk, and immediately starts to bruise. When I say the apple was coming at my mom, I mean it was as though someone had wound up and pitched the thing in a perfectly horizontal line. We knew we were the only ones there, as the area we were in was a large clearing, and we would have heard anyone who would have walked or tried to sneak within throwing distance of us, since the forest floor is heavily carpeted with dead leaves, branches, and pine straw. I still go there sometimes, and I very rarely feel unwelcome there, although I do have the feeling of being constantly watched. Today's second encounter. Last year I had a very strange experience in the National Forest out in California. I was by myself on a road trip with my dog, and I was driving pretty far into Mendocino National Forest. I like to camp in national parks, forests, because it's isolated so my dog can roam and they're free of charge. A trade-off for sketchy/rough drives into the park sometimes and lack of service and assistance. So, I'm driving up this dirt road, kind of curling up the mountain around 5 p.m. It was very nice out, sunny and warm with a slight breeze. Nothing serious happened, but I felt extremely uncomfortable driving into the area, and that feeling did not let up. Driving up the mountain, I felt like I shouldn't stay there, and I even texted my boyfriend about it for as long as I could before my phone completely lost service. I was looking for a sign of any other person having been around that area lately, but I didn't see anything. I pulled over and got out of my car with my dog to look over the edge and noticed a dead squirrel and some broken glass mixed in with the dirt and the gravel. Yucca, my dog, started growling slightly. She is vocal, but I almost only ever seen or heard her growl at or with other dogs. I did see her growl at a possum once, so it could have been something she smelled. This place continued to make me feel quite on edge, but I pride myself in being an independent traveler and backpacker. So I decided to continue at least a bit further with my grumbling pup to see if I could find a good place to camp. I continue to notice more dead animals. Keep in mind, no one is going to be going more than 5 to 10 miles an hour up this thing. And that's if there's anyone even here. I hear a man's voice. They sound close, and I think I should call out to them. So I stop my car, but then I kind of freeze up and feel like I shouldn't. I can't really make out what they are saying. I don't see any sign of people anywhere. I get back into my car and continue to slowly drive forward and cautiously look for where the voices could be coming from. I never ran into any other people in a national park or forest when I have been this deep in. The unsettling feeling grows about the voices, which have sort of come and gone a few times, and I give up and begin to turn my car around. I honestly don't remember how Yucca was acting on the way down. I was scared and focused on getting out of there. I just distinctly remember being surprised at her grumbling when we were standing. Outside of my car, kind of dangerously quickly, I went back down the mountain, not seeing any sign of anyone. I decided to spring for luxury and got a hotel that night. I figured I was just fine. Huge and open spaces can be intimidating, I told myself, and the voices could have been echoing from somewhere far off. They didn't sound close. Animals die, glass gets broken, nothing happens, cool. But I remember this place, it sticks with me. Whenever I'm watching scary movies, if I'm walking my dog in the woods at night, nothing compares to the feeling I had driving up that mountain. And it's honestly kind of interesting to me as well as frightening. I recently happened across some information as well as some Native American lore that made me feel extremely uneasy. Fast forward a year, I mentioned this place to a few people and the haunting vibes it gave me, but nothing much more. Googled the national park once and didn't see anything, but didn't look much either. I like scary movies and things of that nature, hence my fascination. So my boyfriend and I were coming up on finishing our road trip just the other day. We were in Wyoming for a wedding. There were only 2 to 3 hours left and the sun had set, so we decided to listen to some scary podcasts and YouTube videos. We went through the No Sleep podcast to the X-Files and ended up on True Stories, videos dealing with Native American lore. I'm half paying attention, petting my dog, playing Pokemon on the emulator, and I hear the narrator mention Wendigos. Very briefly says what they are and casually mentions they can mimic voices. I mean it when I say the most horrible chills I had ever had in my life crawl down my spine, and I stare at my boyfriend and ask him if he remembers that national forest I was freaked out about that year. He says he does, and he reminds me that he texted me I was probably close to a Wendigo, which he did. I remember him saying that, but didn't know much about the lore and thought he was being funny. Like, yeah, Bigfoot is probably stalking you, or some other dad joke. And he's like, no, I mean, I was mostly joking, but I said it specifically because you said you were hearing voices, and you couldn't find a trace of anything. I feel strange AF, and I start Googling Wendigo. They are allegedly able to mimic voices, and they would live in that sort of area. It all matched up. Obviously, there's a ton of questionable info out there, and I tried to find more reputable websites and authentic experiences. I then specifically looked up missing persons in the area, and the first headline that catches my eye, another family goes missing in Mendocino. And I went through different websites, news articles of people going missing, but they are all a little hidden. Underneath national park websites and pictures of trees, I remember looking up the forest about a year ago and didn't see anything and realized these stories didn't seem to be talked about much, which also piqued my intuition. It was stated that well over 100 people in the past 8 years have gone missing and not been found, on top of many of which are found dead. It just has my intuition super spiked. Remembering how unsafe I felt and how much I wanted to get out of there terrifies me, and I felt so uneasy about what I was hearing, and do to this day. My dog and I are very close. She was a stray and started following me one day, and I ended up bringing her home from Costa Rica. So her little growls along the way makes me feel like there was something wrong, even though it was just a storytelling video. Those stories originate from somewhere. I have done a lot of solo traveling both in and out of the country, and I've never had such a bad feeling, on top of seeing an unnecessary amount of dead animals in the national forest, which just seems strange. I don't think I'll be doing any more solo traveling unless I'm around a civilization. Now, obviously, the girl is scared something happened, but I've mentioned this numerous times. Creepypastas, Reddit, movies, all ruin and kind of mash Native American lore to what fits their needs. Like, Mendocino, California does not have a Wendigo. It's not even their Native American lore. So it just really, these are things that infuriate me. She obviously had a encounter. Something mimicked her, which is terrifying. Dead animals, chances are it was a crawler or whatnot. But like skinwalkers being in West Virginia, it just doesn't happen. Wendigos aren't in California. And I'm sure some people are going to be like, that's crap. No, it's really not. It's true, like Native American lore is sacred and shouldn't be just tossed around by, Elizabeth Warren wannabe Native American people. So, I don't know. These little things just really perturb me. But the important thing is she had a terrifying encounter with something that mimicked her, not a Wendigo. Today's third encounter. A little background. I live in the California foothills. My parents, brother, and I moved into this house from the city in 2017 after the house had been sitting empty for over a year. The day we moved in, my mom and I arrived first to clean while my dad and brother drove the moving truck. Right off the bat, I felt uneasy, but I tried to write it off. The property felt heavy, is the only way I can describe it. Some people have described the feeling of being watched inside their homes, but I had that feeling any time I stepped outside. We were going to sweep and mop the floors, dust the baseboards and windowsills, when I started noticing this white powder all along the baseboards and windowsills, also the doorways. I immediately told my mom, who told me not to worry about it and just sweep it up. By the time I had swept up every room and cleaned off the windowsills, I was fairly certain it was salt, and a lot of it. But fine, whatever. The people that lived here before us were superstitious. Okay, I can live with that. We unpacked the truck over the next week. I was setting up my room when the next bizarre event started happening. Knocking on the windows. Always quick raps that sounded like someone knocking on the window with their knuckles. It would happen so often on all the windows in the house, but when you would turn, no one would be there. You'd go outside, no one would be there or around the house. This only escalated. My brother and I would walk the dogs around the property. They were older, small dogs who were always good-natured and calm, except for when they were outside at the new house. They would growl, puff out, and get extremely agitated. They hated being outside. Then we started finding animal carcasses. They were always small creatures, rats, toads, bats. The biggest we ever found was a raccoon. The animals had been gutted, a single deliberate line down their torso, starting at their chest and ending near their rear. No internal organs left. They looked practically mummified, like something had sucked the fluid and blood and organs right out of them. It was one of the most bizarre and brutal things I had ever seen. My brother would stay up late in his room on his computer every night. He liked to game with his friends until early morning. He does not spook easily, but on more than one occasion I would wake up to him shaking me, terrified, saying something massive on two legs was walking around outside his bedroom window, which he would have opened at night. He said it would walk right up to his bedroom window and stop, and when he would look toward the sound, he could hear it scrambling away. I never saw it with my own eyes, and neither did he, but the motion lights outside would be activated every single time, leading to the woods near the back of our property. I know what you're probably thinking. All of this up to this point can be explained away rationally. A crazy person living in the woods, some neighbor messing with us for whatever reason. Well, that was what I had told myself as well, so I could sleep a little easier at night. Then the banging started. It was so loud, and it would sound like it was coming from everywhere at once. The walls would literally vibrate. Picture frames rattle right off the walls. It was like something massive, stronger than any crazy person was pounding on the exterior walls of our home. Always late at night, and always in more places than just once. I could never pinpoint the source directly. My brother and I would stumble out of our bedrooms petrified. My mom would lead us to her room where we would stay after that. My dad would walk the perimeter of the property with his gun, but never found anything. No footprints, no people, nothing. This happened probably for 6 months, and every time a major event would happen, my dad would walk the perimeter with his rifle and come back with nothing. We felt like we were going insane. Then suddenly it just stopped. The mutilated animals stopped appearing. I stopped feeling like I was being watched any time I go outside. My dogs stopped being so on edge any time we took them out. And the property itself seemed to get lighter, like it finally took a deep breath after holding it for so long. I genuinely have no explanation or even a clue as to what the creature, big entity even was. I'm just glad that it seems to have moved on. Tonight's fourth experience. My best friend and I were around 9 years old at the time this took place. One day she calls me and asks me if I want to go tubing with her and her mom. It wasn't actually inner tubing. Her mom went to the store and bought us some floaties and dropped us off at the national park about 10 minutes away from where we live. Yeah, her mom dropped 2 9-year-olds off at a national park in the middle of the woods. Turns out my friend only said her mom was coming, so my parents would let me go. Anyway, the plan was to intertube down this river which led into town, then walk to her dad's house and call her mom to pick us up. The trip goes all right. Some parts of the river were too shallow, so we'd have to stand up and walk through the water holding our inner tubes until it got deep enough to float again. It was super fun and relaxing being all alone in the wilderness, just enjoying each other and the water. The only part that freaked me out as this point was the fact that there was no trespassing signs posted on a few trees. The river we were on was close to the road that led to the national park. That was to our left. To the right was wilderness that stretched on for miles and miles. We got to the point that was deeper than the rest, I'd say about 10 feet. We're laughing and joking around when all of a sudden we hear rustling to our right. We couldn't see much. The bank was overgrown with ferns and some other type of foliage that grew way taller than either of us, even taller than the height of a full-grown man. All the blood drains from my face, and we're both paralyzed in fear as we watch a tall human-like figure on 2 feet, holding its arms out much like a raptor does, and passes through the foliage. We couldn't see it, just its shadow of it. Of course, I'm on the side closest to whatever the heck this thing was. 2 thoughts went through our head as to what was happening, but I didn't dare make a sound. It was a person. I thought about the no trespassing signs, and I was terrified that I was going to have to sit here and beg for my life to some crazy outback hillbilly hunter or something. That's when I noticed I couldn't see an outline. I could see an outline of definite fur all over its body. Next thought, bear. This scared me even more because animals like this have no sense of wrong or right. At least if it was a person, I'd have a chance to beg for my life and possibly be successful in doing so. The bear would just rip us both to shreds and wouldn't see anything wrong with it. We're just having lunch. A few minutes pass, still complete silence. I look over at my friend, still on edge and uneasy, but I manage to whisper and ask if she wants to get out of the water and walk the rest of the way. Of course she replies, yeah. We paddle ourselves through the water with our arms until we make it to the bank toward the road. It's about a 5 to 10 minute walk up the steep hill. But, oh well. And it's better than staying down there and risking seeing that creature again. We walk until eventually her mom pulls up, says that she had a feeling to come and check on us because we hadn't called yet. It wasn't until after we realized it was definitely not a person. It was covered in fur. Don't think it was a bear. It walked on 2 legs perfectly and actually ran. By the way, we ended up doing this in the same area twice after this. Once a few months after this happened. However, because of what happened the last time, this time we brought our phones and put them in a Ziploc baggie just in case anything happened. nothing did. However, when we got to the 10-foot deep area where this occurred, we just had this overwhelming feeling of eeriness. So we got out of the water and walked the rest of the way. The third time was years ago when we were teenagers and went back with our boyfriends. Again, nothing of interest happened other than me losing my inner tube, having to share with my boyfriend, and getting separated from my friend and her dude. We got sick of sharing, so we got out of the water, started our way back towards the national park, and eventually got picked up by a sweet couple in a pickup truck who took us the rest of the way. Turns out they also decided to give up early and walk back, but instead of walking along the road, chose to take the path in the woods. Alright guys, see what I mean about kind of supernatural-esque rather than roaming the countryside and almost resembling flesh and blood. Still terrifying. To me, they feel just a little bit different than, seeing a dogman attack a wild animal. Like what I saw with my friends that evening. They seemed, or that creature that I saw, because I only saw one, even though we saw a group of eyeshine, they seemed supernatural. They seemed to come out of nowhere. Like out of a portal, out of some kind of elsewhere, if that makes any sense. So, check out some of my favorite video clips.
That's not human. That's not a human. I don't think it's here at first, but no. That is not a human.
Are you ready for one?
Yeah. Jeez.
Maybe it'd be a little bit lighter. Actually wipe out. And there you have it, folks. I do hope you all enjoyed this night ending bonus as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you, and I'd like to thank you all for supporting the channel. It is, after all, your support that helps the channel to continue to grow and go, and what gives us all a place and a chance to share our experiences and theories judgment-free. Everyone is simply treated with the respect that we deserve. Please, everyone, stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, pets, family, and our friends. These creatures are real, they are out there and dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save their lives someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, never stop searching for the truth, and God bless you all.